PRN photographers, what is the most awkward moment you had? What do you feel when you film? How is your job generally? Not photographer here, but cinematographer. When I was at the beginning of my career, I accepted a proposal to work on a hard movie. After the second day of filming, the director approached me and told me, "It's clear you are a good cinematographer. I love how you manage the skin tones and mood. Just one thing. In this industry, it's not only the face that we want lit correctly." When I was 22, I was asked by a friend of mine to record he and his wife have sex. He said it didn't have to be weird because they weren't looking for a threesome or anything like that. I agreed because it sounded interesting. But the sex they had was extremely rough and unexpected. At one point he started crying while she was doing a certain something to his backside while wearing a large attachment, and I asked if he was alright, which caused him to get head and yell at me for interrupting them. I stayed quiet after that and kept recording when he was able to get back in the mood. After they were done, he left the room and his wife asked me to never to bring up him crying to him because he was sensitive about it. I of course agreed, and she hugged me then kissed me on my cheek, which I really didn't like because she was still naked and covered in sweat and I just watched her eat his butt not more than 15 minutes prior. I was in AA when I was 19 and I learned that my then sponsor directed PRN. Being an ambitious young man, I inquired about any job openings as an actor. He just shook his head and said, "You don't actually want to do PRN. It smells bad." Worked on a set as security and observed that basically time is money. They want to get specific things on film and, at this time, photographed. That tension if things are not going smoothly or perfectly is not attractive. Production staff are simply trying to achieve all the goals and ensure they check everything off their list, and one inability to deliver causes them a lot of stress. Not a photographer, but I worked for an adult company and have been on multiple gay and hetero video sets. There is more poop and blood on a PRN set than you think. Also a fair amount of vomit. I was once on set for a scene that involved faking accidental anal. So much poop. Then after the performer used the bathroom for an hour of douching, the scene continued. Every few minutes a cameraman or sound guy would wipe blood from the dude's dick. They weren't willing to halt filming because they had a tight schedule and the empty mansion they were filming in had a real estate appointment meeting in it that night. Can someone link the video of the camera operator eating a donut while filming a scene? That was what first came to my mind. I had to shoot the ugliest couple I have ever seen. Woman looked like a 6-foot ogre and man looked like a tiny Harry Potter with a soul patch. They had zero chemistry and she kept looking at his junk and trying to make this sultry face, but it looked like she was confused and disgusted by it. They also insisted on shooting in the hot tub, but she was the exact same color as the stucco behind it. I was the model for an act outdoor shoot and was posing on a pretty big boulder. Felt a tickling on my ass. Looking there and there was this lizard just chilling on my butt. Was so surprised I almost jumped off the rock. The photographer was very amused. I also learned that rock climbing naked is a lot of fun. I don't shoot PRN or even erotic, but I am a photographer who shoots a lot of art nudes, and my models range from first-time models who only shoot fully clothed to people who shoot PRN. Before every shoot I give the model a safety talk, in which I say that I won't touch them, that I'll show them every shot I take, and tell them that if anything is making them uncomfortable I want them to speak up. I once had a model interrupt that talk to say my job is mainly shooting bondage and fetish PRN. There is nothing that you are going to say or do that will make me uncomfortable. That felt awkward to me. I thought about it for a second and told her that I did not care what she did at other times. I was going to treat her like I treated every other model. And then I went on with my model safety talk. I have to admit that I am always a bit nervous working with a model who is new to me. Her saying that actually made me relax a bit during the shoot. There was an AMA on this a while back. You may be able to find something there. Dude, I went to university, had a job working as cameraman for some sleazy Euro PRN guy in the 90s. This was long before PRN was easily available on the internet. This guy had multiple times he was hit with cum by accident. Actual pornographer here. I work for an independent studio in Los Angeles called Perv City and I shoot pro-am scenes of my husband for our site inspection. Most awkward on a professional set was when we were shooting a normal MILF boy girl scene, no anal, and the male talent fingered the MILF so hard that she all over the couch. I love my job. I love creating PRN. I really enjoy working with most of the people in the PRN industry. I just wish we would do a better job to get rid of the predators. Not me, and he was a lighting guy. Not a photographer. He worked with Ron Jeremy. Said the guy smelled like cabbage and had a reputation for not paying the crew. He got boned out of his money and went to Ron's house to get his money. Ron argued why he shouldn't get paid and finally paid up. He said the set was generally pretty sad. Lots of cocaine and crying. Set always smelled terrible even without Ron Jeremy in the room. He said he was pretty celibate for a while after working on the PRN set. My uncle's best mate used to have his own photography business. He stopped about 8 years ago. He always mentioned a story where a woman approached him and asked him to take photos of her so she could give the album to her husband for his birthday. Fully naked pictures of her using sex toys and so on. Anyway, she'd apparently been using a DLDO on her ass and she was around 2 hours into the shoot. She finished with the DLDO and was spreading her cheeks when a little nugget of poo came sliding out. Which just so happened to be caught on camera with her showing a face of absolute horror. She got changed and left and paid for the pictures several weeks later. Except the one of the Great Escape. I never did see those pictures so can't say for certain. I've shot a lot of fetish and boudoir. And for the most part, it's like shooting anything else. My mind gets focused on light, shadows, composition, etc. rather than look. There's someone's gaping butthole. Shooting adult content is a lot less glamorous than people think. I've had past partners ask to bring the camera into the bedroom. It's fun. But if you're going to get good content, it's not super SI, there's a lot of starting and stopping to adjusting lights, set up timers, etc. Add a serious tag cause I want actual answers. I've met quite a lot of people in the industry in Japan. But one guy, a still photographer, really sticks out. Super creepy dude from Northern Europe. Got his kicks showing random people at the bar I was working at his work. It was a bit funny with regulars. But you could tell it made a lot of people uncomfortable after a while. His was niche as hell though. So most people probably didn't know what they were shown given a quick glance. As far as hearing how he liked the work, it seems like a lot of his work was so niche it didn't really hit him in a SZL way. But judging from his actions and way of speaking around others, I'm sure there was more to him than I could see at the time. Well, there's that one video of the cameraman that got hit with some of the money shot in the face by complete accident. I was filming a scene with 2 girls eyeing. It's not uncommon at all to kneel sit lay on the bed to get better shots. One girl ended up squirting more than I've seen in my 30 years as a lesbian and it went all over me. Not only that, but I had to stay laying in the puddle for a few minutes before I could switch angles. Former studio manager, we did a few things. Including PRN. Mostly a professional. Maybe jaded. Work environment, so nothing really was out of the ordinary for us. However, there was one performer who used to take a break from filming at 5 PM to receive a phone call from her prison-bound boyfriend. He was a convicted pedophile who had groomed her since she was 14. A real piece of who had used his fame to take advantage of dozens of vulnerable women and girls. Very uncomfortable. Stays with me nearly a decade later. Edit, I'm not sure how happy I am revealing his name. Let's just say he took the last train home. Explaining the weird stuff like, okay, we have line you 2 up so that she can swallow you whole. Like a python. Or we need to stick these tracking dots to you so the software can put in the extra breasts. Or okay, you have make out with the mannequin. Be careful not touch the back of her head, it will knock the camera and make loose and so on. Honestly, since I did the effects stuff, my mind was on how to get it done. Shooting PRN is not SI. It is work. You learn detachment quickly. Helps I wasn't into anything I was shooting to. I don't do it anymore. Right around the last economic crash no one was buying. And models were harder to find, so it tipped over to just not worth it. I sometimes think about shooting again. But I have none of the resources anymore. No talent pool, studio, gear or anything. But I bet I could hit movie quality with the stuff out now. Professional photographer. I used to take photos of sex dolls. The real expensive ones that cost thousands of dollars. I had my studio in my garage because my house was too small for any other room. It was the middle of summer and it was starting to get hot in the garage. Since I was alone, I undressed completely because I was just sweating profusely. These dolls are not easy to position. Their bones are metal and are very heavy. Think an actual girl would at least help you move correctly. Well, as I was grabbing one and moving it into position, my wife walks in the garage, to which I screamed, "This isn't what IT looks like." She knew I was photographing them naked, but she just couldn't stop laughing. I worked as a photographer on PRN sets shortly back in 2011. It's like any other job. Nothing awkward happened during my year. Most sets have 5 to 12 people. It's fairly professional. I try to do the best to take the best angles of the girls. Work was steady. But I made roughly $30,000, which was considered low back in 2011. I ended up freelancing and starting my own business. A lot of the girls who are traveling strippers supported me early on. I took a job during college that required me to film fisting at a hotel. The smell was the most putrid, horrible smell you can imagine. I only did it twice. Because the last time I was hired, about midway through the shoot, apparently there was not enough lube applied to the receiver's jelly donut. The sheer force of the fist, which actually looks more like punching a wet paper bag than some delicate procedure, caused a rip in this guy's asshole, and we had to rush him to the hospital in my car. There was all kinds of fluid leaking onto my back seat. Some of it looked clear and some it was blood. Never again. Not even for what they were paying me. This Reddit post is going to make one of those videos recorded with a robotic voice. I know. When they can't ejaculate, you cover the girl in Cetaphil or pina colada mix. I still can't drink pina colada. Also, the amount of girls that don't wipe their asses properly is astounding. I'm constantly having to tell girls to use baby wipes if they. Some still don't get it or are too high on Xanax to comprehend it. So you have to wipe their asses. If the girl is especially awful in behavior, it'll let her have poopy butthole shots. I hadn't really considered working in PRN before this comment. And thanks to your comment. Reddit always wakes up horny. I'm not a pro smut photographer, but I do bondage photography as a hobby. I don't think I've ever really had an awkward moment. The models are always professional and shoots are always done in about 2 hours. As for what I feel when I film, focused. Mostly. Yes. I'm definitely into bondage. But I never really get turned on while filming or taking photos. I'm too focused by the rigging. Getting the lighting right. Getting the angles right. Giving directions to the model and making sure she's as comfortable as possible. It's more of a creative outlet for me than wank material. I've seen a video of somebody speaking about his time as a PRN cameraman. The smell was generally bad. I mean, they're eyeing 4 hours in a closed room. Then, when you're filming from just behind the balls ass of the dude when he him is the most degrading. He said. Because you're filming a dude's asshole and balls going back and forth right in front of you. It's probably also the smelliest place in the room. Came for some entertaining PRN bloopers and instead got 500 plus comments on how to clean my ass. No legit answers yet. I mean, of course not. It's in Reddit. Average age of about 13. Honestly, I'm surprised there aren't already 4 top comments pretending to be PRN photographers that are obviously creative writing projects. A friend of mine works for a British gay PRN site. He does camera work and sometimes assists the performer. The site does mainly jerk off movies and occasional pairs of mainly younger guys in their 20s and early 30s. He's gay so obviously might get turned on. But he actually likes mainly bears. Otters and guys a little older than him. He's 30. The actors are mainly twinkie or slim fit lads, so not really his taste so much. Sometimes they have a hairier guy or just one he likes, and then it gets harder to be professional. He has performed himself on camera, but clothed, usually giving the actor a hand job. I once did business with a pimp to take photos of his prostitutes for a website since he was trying to expand his business. He would tell them how to pose, what to do, then ask me to take photos of him eyeing them so he could show just what they could do. The prostitutes tried to pay me in SX, but I told them cash was fine. Probably not the most awkward story, but I love telling friends how prostitutes have paid me for my services. Anybody else there notice that these questions get asked? And it's always somebody who has a friend that answers? Not me, but a friend noticed. Who gave him a wholesome award XD? I think you mean a wholesome award. I shoot and film everything from implied nude art stuff right up through Suicide Girls style SI nudes and glamour. The hardcore scenes for pro and amateur models and for professional websites. I also manage an OnlyFans of my photography and films. The weirdest thing is how normal it feels during a shoot or filming. During nude photography, there's usually a constant banter with the model even when it's quite an explicit shoot. The arousal is entirely faked, so the conversation is pretty natural. The only time it's awkward generally is when the male model has trouble getting it up. Then there's a bunch of waiting around, usually while he watches PRN and jacks off, then he's like, go now. And we all have to be ready. Isn't there a video where a PRN star accidentally does her and just swipes it away? I once saw a documentary where the girl is licking a guy's butthole and he farts. Horny Reddit questions. This sounds like a question asked while watching PRN. You just made it awkward for all of us. Focus, man. I'm just here before the show gets good. Come lads. Pull up a chair. I love the movie Boogie Nights because it's all behind the scenes stuff with PRN. William H. Macy is priceless in it. I never worked in PRN, but my roommate had a GF who was a PRN producer. I will never forget the day I was home alone and got a call to go into his room and grab a large clear plastic trash bag filled with pubic hair and bring it out to their car. They were running late and doing some kind of muff PRN shoot that day. I still laugh about the memory of me walking downstairs and out to the parking lot with a giant bag of pubes. Not a ho to grappabiat. After reading these, I've come to the conclusion that male talent in straight PRN are terribly underpaid. Not PRN. But I did an interview with Ron Jeremy about 12 years ago. He's super groppy, and at the end of the shoot he grabbed Britney Sky and exposed her breast to the whole crew. She looked super uncomfortable and it was an awkward moment that seemed to last way too long as she tried to fend him off and smiled uncomfortably. Pretty sure he had his other hand up her backside too. Turns out, via another Reddit thread, he molested an underage girl outside the very location we filmed him that very day. Glad to see he's finally getting in trouble for his Thai behavior. Stop jerking around. We need answers. In a boudoir photographer, which is not PRN, but is racy, and can contain nudity. While I'm working, I don't really feel anything except for what I call work mode, which is paying attention to lighting, settings, poses, and that the client is comfortable and looks good. However, the weirdest moment I had wasn't during a shoot, but after. I did a boudoir shoot for my girlfriend as a gift. She loved the results and shared some less revealing pics with her sister. Her sister started to beg that I do a session for her. Her sister is morbidly obese, has a superiority complex, and thinks every man she meets falls madly in love with her. I didn't want to with any of that. So I just let her know that I wouldn't be comfortable doing boudoir for a family member. My second cousin's niece had a friend that was the godmother of a PRN photographer. I recall one time he told me that he had to film a trans that he truly believed was a woman. And they asked him to get real close for the pulling the pants down shot. He got too close and ended up getting walloped in the face by the quote unquote biggest, blackest cock he had ever seen. He also told me he loves his job. My second cousin's niece had a friend that was the godmother of a PRN photographer. Yeah. Well, my sister's aunt from a second marriage's cousin-in-law twice removed adopted stepsister said. Full stop. Full stop. Dot. What were we talking about? For me, the worst thing was when my parents found out what I did. They were devastated. They ended up filing a lawsuit against me and I had to remove the video. They never agreed to be in it. There was a guy who worked at my previous news media company. He used to work for a PRN star before joining where I worked. He used to do the amateur cameraman work like inserting dildos and anal beads and all sorts of in her while filming it. He told me he was never personally involved in her activities and never intended to get personal with her. But one day during filming, she started ordering him around to put his dick in her ass and her. He was baffled and that's where he noped the out. It's one of the more hilarious stories I got to know from my workmates. Is someone a PRN photographer if they hide in undergrowth and take pictures of their ex through the bathroom window whilst masturbating? There was this one shoot where the star of the video's mom walked in. It was a mess. She freaked out. Screamed, asked what she was thinking. Then she exclaimed, "That's not how you do it. This is." I heard about a really awkward one where the star's stepbrother stumbles onto the set. He was just there to see if she would like to go to Starbucks with him or something, so she's all flustered like, "What are you doing here, stepbro?" And he's just flabbergasted. But then he gets interested in what is going on. So she tells him more about her job. And it was a really touching moment between stepbro and stepsis. I've worked in PRN for about 6 years total. Mostly working for gay studios. Honestly, feeling awkward has gone out the door. It's very difficult to be awkward when you work in that sort of environment. People ask me if I get turned on while filming, so no. I'm more focused on getting the right shots and angles plus directing the model, which takes the fun out of it. It has happened. But only with models who are extremely good at their job and move fluently. I've discovered working that closely and personally with people is just too much drama. I've taken a step back for the rest of this year. But I've definitely been come on a couple times. Also had to witness a couple positive STD screenings. That was awk. I would say, how did the guy that filmed the lemon scene not burst out in laughter? My sister woke up once. Hold the F up. My friend is a photographer and has been hired by some low-level PRN companies to do shoots. He said one thing no one thinks of when looking at PRN is the smells. He says mostly BO and cigarettes with some genitals in there too. One time he was working and afterwards the girl in the PRN started to flirt with him while sweaty and naked. He said it was really gross and uncomfortable. What an awful day to be literate.